Well, this morning, as it's Father's Day, we're going to talk about men of faith. And I put in your notes, I believe, in the beginning here that, is it so fundamentally true that we have all of these things we buy in the stores and stuff today, and they come with instruction manuals and quick start guides and all this kind of stuff, but they don't give us that when we have children, do they? Oh, and if they did, it wouldn't work. Me and Joe were just talking the other day about a piece of equipment we have up there, and you have an owner's manual, but it really doesn't help you with everything. And I thought that's exactly how one would be if you had a handbook that come with kids. And I've told people sometimes that have done really well raising kids, some people right here in this church, and I said, give me the pamphlet that you use. Not that I think it'll directly copy into my own children, but it'll give you some pointers here or there. But you realize if you have children, especially you have multiple children, that they're all different. And even an owner's manual for one wouldn't go for the other. So in our culture today, though, and in the world that we're living in, when you think about men, and yes, I'm going to talk about fathers today. I'm going to talk about men. Ladies, you had your day last month, okay? So I'm not cutting out the women. We're not downplaying women, but we're going to talk about fatherhood today. We're going to talk about men today, all right, because it's Men's Day, okay? I told you, fathers, just wait, and your day was coming, and here it is today. But the role of a man has certainly been watered down in the world today. I mention this probably every single year, every time we talk about this, but especially the role of a father. If you look at media today, movies, TV shows, and things like that, fathers are generally portrayed as doofuses or buffoons or something like that. And I guess that they're doing that to correct this, patriarchal society, that chauvinistic society that we've always lived in. So we got to downplay men and all of that kind of stuff, because men have been such in power, and we've subjugated people, for so long, and all of this kind of thing, that they trying to, tip the scales back over. But that certainly is what has taken place in the world today. But fathers, generally from the world's perspective, are looked at to be, your role is to, bring home a paycheck, and maybe you do a little handyman stuff. Maybe it's a coach or a stronger disciplinarian kind of thing. And if that's things that you've brought to the table, they're noble tasks. Those are definitely things that I think fathers should do, and they're biblically based in there, but they're not the most important things. God's blueprint for fatherhood, and for men in particular, goes deeper than being a Mr. Fix-It or somebody that can help be the breadwinner or even just a co-breadwinner in there. It goes a lot deeper than that. And I say this in your notes, fathers are shepherds of souls, okay? Men are called to be able to do that. And in Joshua chapter 24, verses 14 and 15, it says, "Now fear the Lord and serve him with all faithfulness. Throw away the gods your ancestors worshiped beyond the Euphrates River and in Egypt, and serve the Lord." And Joshua says in verse 15, "But if serving the Lord seems undesirable to you, then choose for yourselves this day whom you will serve, whether the gods your ancestors served beyond the Euphrates or the gods of the Amorites, in whose land you are living. But as for me and my household, we'll" what? "We'll serve the Lord." We always quote that particular portion of the verse, but this in its broader context in chapter 24 is when God is renewing the covenant that he had made with Moses, but renewing it under Joshua's leadership. Okay, and so he's saying, hey, take off all of these other gods, all of this pagan worship that you've done, serve the Lord. But Joshua goes, if you don't want to do that, though, you can keep serving those other gods, but you can choose, because you can choose to do whatever you want to do, can't you? God gives us free will. You can choose to serve him. You can choose to not serve him. But Joshua takes a stand, and he says, "But as for me and my house, we're going to serve the Lord." When he stood before them and declared that in verse 15, what was he doing? You'd think that would be easy. He was putting God first for himself, though. He was asserting himself as the spiritual leader of his family and household, what Miss Amanda said. Huh? He was saying it to Israel, but he was speaking for not just Joshua, but he was speaking for his whole household, right? Okay. I mean, is that true? All right. He was speaking. All right. So what I put in your notes is not what he did, but I've told you what he wasn't doing. What he wasn't doing was taking a back seat in the spiritual leadership of his household or his family, was he? He certainly wasn't taking a back seat. He was out there in front. He was taking a front seat. And I think Amanda said he was asserting himself as a spiritual leader for his family. He wasn't sitting back waiting for somebody else. Hey, somebody else speak up. Let my wife speak up. Let my children speak up. He was out there in front speaking for his household. Now, as the leader of his family, he was establishing at least what a boundary line would be. He didn't go into great detail about how all this would look, but he said, we are going to serve the Lord. We're not going to serve the gods of the Euphrates and the gods of the Amorites and all these other people. We, as far as my household is concerned, we are going to serve the Lord. So spiritual leadership in the home, it doesn't mean that you get to be a dictator, that you're the only decision maker or any of that kind of stuff. And that's not what Joshua is doing there either. But it does require leadership from you, though. It does require some input from you. What I wanted you to look at was Joshua, was he solidifying and saying, hey, because he said this, did this mean that now Joshua, his wife, and all of his children did nothing but serve the Lord and they never erred? Does it say that? Now, obviously, he can't speak for every decision that's going to happen within his household, but he is putting it out there in the sphere. This is how I'm going to lead my family, right? That's what he's saying. He cannot say, nor was he saying, that it was going to happen, okay? But he's saying this is where we're going. This is the direction that we are going to go as far as Joshua's household is concerned. Now, again, some people will take that and say, well, they're going and I'm going to make my kid do this. I'm going to make my wife do this. Well, that's a whole different story, okay? When you start absolutely saying, it's like saying, hey, today we're going to eat supper. That's easy, isn't it? Now, what you going to eat? Where you going to go eat at? Oh, now here come the arguments. You know, nobody can agree on it. Like, well, I don't think I want that today. Oh, we had that yesterday. Certainly we don't want pizza. Seen enough pizza, okay? Grief. Had pizza in Vacation Bible School. Ladies had pizza yesterday. If I see another Little Caesars box, I'm just going to go just pass out. All right? So, that's a little bit different. But if you look at in the Bible, I don't know where we got it from, y'all, because it just never is in the scriptures either. But the type of leadership that Christ modeled for us, the type of leadership that the Bible lays out for men and for fathers, is servant leadership. Not this lording over people, dictatorial type of a leadership. Christ says, I came not to be served, but to serve and to give my life as a ransom for many. I mean, that was out of his own mouth, okay? So what you can't do with Joshua 24:15 is say Joshua was making his family do anything. Joshua was taking a stand for his family. He was leading his family. He was not taking a back seat. He was taking a front seat to where he wanted to lead his family. Now, for many men, you have in your mind that you have got to have a theological degree from a seminary somewhere in order to be a spiritual leader in your home, that you got to be able to answer every question that your wife or your children or other people may be able to bring up to you, that you're just not as polished as the preacher or somebody else like that. You don't know enough about that. So or maybe your wife is a stronger, outward Christian than you are, so you cede responsibility. You take a back seat to your wife or to to your significant other because they're smarter than you are about biblical things. Wrong answer. Nobody ever said that you had to be the smartest person in the room to take leadership. You think that God picked Joshua because he was the most knowledgeable about everything? There were certainly Levites that were out there that were better students of the law of Moses than Joshua. Why did God pick Joshua to succeed Moses? Huh? Well, not necessarily. He had already picked him before he took the stand. I'll wait. We got plenty of time. It wasn't because he was the smartest about the law. Maybe what other qualifications would this man, what was the task he was about to do? Huh? What was Joshua going to do? Huh? Pat, come on. He was going to lead. Maybe he wasn't the smartest, but he was the best leader. He was the one that had the qualifications to lead the Israelites into the promised land. He was finally going to cross the Jordan River, and he was the best leader. Okay? And listen, I understand, and I didn't write this in the notes. I was pretty sure I may make a comment on this, but there may be some other things coming from this later. But the Southern Baptist Church has done a lot of controversy out about Southern Baptist Church and stances they've taken now on women pastors and all the rest of this kind of stuff. And ladies, my last sermon to y'all on Mother's Day was about y'all are pillars of the church, okay? You should be celebrated. You are absolutely necessary for faith. We talked about Timothy's mama and grandma and all this other kind of stuff, okay? But I want y'all to be clear. The Bible writes that it is the responsibility of men to lead. You can't wiggle your way out of it, gentlemen. I'd love to do so. But he lays the responsibility at our feet. And you can I don't care about a denomination going and voting. I don't care that you say that there's somebody else out there that's better qualified. I'm not saying that women can't lead. You most certainly can. You can do a lot better job than many men that are out there. But the responsibility of leadership falls at the man's feet. When I promise you this, gentlemen, when you get to your judgment day, the things that have happened in your family will fall at your feet before they fall to your wife's feet. Oh, there's responsibility for the wife too, no doubt about it. But you bear the responsibility of it, and that's not Corey's opinion. Corey's a man. I'd love for it to be on y'all ladies, and Mother's Day would be a whole different subject. I would say, oh, it's all on y'all. We just get to sit back and bear the... No, it is a huge responsibility that is put upon men. And why do you think that Satan has come against men and fathers more in this entire world than anything else? And he's succeeded. There's classes that are being taken right now. My mom was assigned a class that she had to take, and you know what the title of the class was? Fatherhood. DFACS was making her take a fatherhood class. And I said, if that doesn't tell you right there that because the class is set up, because most of the time it's the men that are abandoning the children to other people and the women having to take up that, not the woman. And so the whole class right here in Bibb County was a fatherhood class, and she was going to a fatherhood class. I said, she don't need to be taught how to be a father, she needs to be taught to be a mama. But that shows you what's happening in our world today. Why would Satan attack the men so much? Why would the media and stuff be so much against things how they are? And he is winning the case. And there's plenty of people right here in the church, as I say, that men that you feel like, oh, well, no, I'm not good enough to do that. Why is that the case? You feel like you're not good enough because the Bible told you that? You feel like that because that's some context within your own household or something like that where you have ceded responsibility. But if you go through the Bible, it's pretty clear about what we're supposed to be doing and how we're supposed to be going about it. In Deuteronomy chapter 6, verses 4 through 9, it had nothing to do, y'all, with a seminary degree or being a professional Christian, being a pastor, a Sunday school teacher, a deacon, all of these titles and things like that we have. It's not about that. This is what God told the Israelite people. He says, "Hear, O Israel." He wasn't just talking about fathers here now. I want you to understand this. He's talking about everybody. "The Lord our God, the Lord is one. Love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, with all your strength. These commandments I give you today are to be on your hearts." And then in verse 7, look what he says. He doesn't just say, mamas, right? He just says to everybody, impress them on your children. How do you do that? Take them to the pastor, let the pastor teach them. Take them to Awana, take them to Sunday school class, give them to the children's ministers and the youth pastors and all of those kind of things. Does it say that you are to cede responsibility of training your children in the Lord to the church? What's it say? It says, you impress these things on your children, right? And now look at how it says how to do it. This is so clear. Daddies, you want a handbook on how to do it? Mamas, if you want a handbook on how to do it, this is what you do. Talk about them when you sit at home, when you walk along the road, when you lie down, and when you get up. Tie them as symbols on your hands and bind them on your foreheads. Write them on the door frames of your houses and on your gates. So when you look at that, what's the point here? Did it say you needed to go to a seminary? It said talk about the Lord in your normal, everyday circumstances that you're living when you're sitting around eating dinner. I put this in your notes. Spiritual leadership is woven into the ordinary and everyday rhythm of your life. It ought to be anyway. It's a conversation in the truck on the way to a ball game or a fishing trip. I'm sorry, I wrote this like I was doing it. I'm in the car. Go get my kids out of children's church right now and ask them how many times their daddy sits with them with a Bible at home and preaches a sermon to them. I don't do that. I don't do that. I have ordinary, regular conversations with my kids in the normal course of life. How many, you ask them, I challenge you, ask all three of them, how many times I've had a conversation in my truck about something? How many conversations we've had sitting in the boat? How many times I go in just to Eli's room or Ansley's room and I sit on the side of the bed and we talk about what they did at school or something like that, and then I bring up something about faith maybe. It's not like, let's come sit down at the table with Daddy, and Daddy, because he's got a master's degree and he's a preacher, I'm going to preach to you. No, I don't even like doing this to y'all. I've told you before, what I'm doing right now, my least favorite thing to do in ministry. It's the least effective. You know what's the most effective? When I'm right down on the ground with people one-on-one. Jesus, did he preach? Yes, he did. To the 5,000, to the Sermon on the Mount, to all those people. What did he spend most of his time doing? On the ground, discipling. Okay? This is necessary, but those preachers that they put everything into this and this is all you do, please, give me that. I don't want to be an itinerant preacher. I like to be on the ground pastoring, being with folks, you know, and that's the way I want to do with my children. In that way. So it's just a ride in the truck, a time just out there in normal life. It says it. Didn't it say it? It says in verse 7. Impress them on your children. Talk about them when you sit at home. When you walk along the road. Y'all ain't walking nowhere no more. Hopefully you're driving. You know. You can, if the car breaks down and you are walking, well, spend that time as you walk to and from church to talk about it. But as you drive, you know, when you lie down, when you get up, that's what it's talking about. It's pausing to pray over a child when they're in need. You know, when your kid is anxious about something, maybe there's plenty of times that I have just picked up my kids, they were going through something, they were hurt or whatever, and I said, look, and I go in their room, Daddy's going to pray for you. I don't always do that as a group. I do that to them just right there and pray over them for what they're going through when they're going to be able to do something, to be able to pray for them. It's that moment that you take to do that. Maybe it's you letting them see you live your faith out through your daily actions. Okay? Maybe they see you open up your own Bible by yourself and have your own time. Maybe they just see you praying. Maybe they see you go to church because you bring them to church, or they see you praying or doing something for somebody else, what a better way to teach them to model it rather than telling them what they should do but never see you do. So there's a couple of different things, right? There's just ordinary things how we're talking. You don't have to have all the proper words. You don't have to have all the right seminary language. Just taking a stand for your family. And if it's that important, then you ought to be out there doing that for them. Are you present? I know you're here. Are you present in your life and in your kids' lives at home? You can't lead where you're not present. The greatest gift a father can give his children is his focused and intentional time. And let me tell you something from this daddy. That was important to me. With Eli, I had no time. He'll talk. He doesn't remember. He only knows what I was talking to him about. But many times Brooke was bathing him by herself. I was working at the bank 6 days a week. Sunday is not a off day for me. We had Sunday night services at that point. So I was, Sunday morning, Sunday night, and you get up and it's the next thing, over and over and over. And I did not have enough time. And I said, you know what? This is not going to work. This is not going to work. I can't do this. So I started making some plans to be able to, back off from those things. Now, I've told you, there's many a thing that I can be an example for you not to do. But I do not take a step back. Men, you think you got to provide so much for your family. You think they got to have every toy. You think they got to have every, cell phone and all that. That's not what they care about. That's not what you remember your father and them for. You know what I hear about from most people about their daddy? Even the daddies that provided them the best car they had at 16, what hurts me the most is those parents that say, but you know what? I don't know when my daddy told me he loved me. Boy, that really sticks with you, don't it? Oh, he gave me the cars. We had all the food on the table, but he never told me he loved me. You think I want my kids to say that at the end of days? Lord, have mercy, no. That he was so busy doing all this. You know what's particular about me that you don't have to do with? All of y'all want a piece of my time. And there's plenty of times I have to not answer your phone call. And there's times I do not answer your phone call. There's times I can't go to the hospital. There's times I don't know. But I don't ever want to be that preacher that never gets to do any of that kind of stuff. I don't want to have, I got staff that does that for me. No. I want to be there at the hospital with you. I want to be the one that is able to do that. I want to be able to talk to you in church and all that. But I also have to choose to cheat at times, and I have to be here for my children too. They are my first ministry. Y'all were like number 4. I know I said this before, and people got upset about it, and I don't care. Number 1, God. You're not number 1. Neither are my children or my wife. Number 1's God. Number 2 is my wife, not my children. Number 3 is my children. And y'all fall somewhere down around number 4 and all that. A little higher than Facebook friends, okay, and that kind of stuff down there. But that's the order of it. And it's not your job and all that other kind of stuff. You got to get your priorities right. Men, you got to get your priorities right. It's worked for me. I'm not perfect. Just ask them. Please don't ask them. That's what I was worried about on that video. Whew. What were they going to say? What were they going to say? Not perfect. Never have I said that I was. Okay, but overall, it's working pretty good for me as we try to manage these things. When a father, I want to read this. When a father takes his place as a spiritual leader, it changes the trajectory of a family for generations to come. Study after study, and I was going to print them out and show them to you, but just take my word for it, and you can look them up. Studies consistently show that when a father is active in his faith and leads his family to church, the likelihood of his children sticking to the faith as adults skyrockets. When the father takes that role. Yes, mamas are doing a great job. We talked about that last month, okay? Mamas are the pillar of everything, but when the daddy takes the role, it moves the needle higher. I wonder why. Because that's our responsibility. That's what we're supposed to be doing. We've been skirting that responsibility for quite some time. But I asked this question in the notes. Who's the spiritual thermostat in your home? And I didn't ask who's the thermometer. The thermometer tests and tells you what the temperature is. But who's the thermostat? Who's setting whether it's cold or hot? Who has the control of that thermostat? And I'm not saying that adults on either side can't be. Sometimes Brooke's controlling that thermostat, and I'm going, what are you doing? Oh, I'm talking about the real one. Sometimes Brooke does control the thermostat spiritually in our house. It's not always me. It shouldn't always be me. But I can tell you this. At the end of the day, if that thermostat, if the spiritual tenor in our house was in the wrong spot, I'm going to make sure, I'm going to take a leading step of that, and I'm not just going to sit back and go, well, she changed it, I'm too scared of her, and nor would she do that to me. She's not going to let our kids burn up because of some idiot daddy, and nor would you do that on the other side. Okay, but I'm saying, men, we are supposed to be way more of a thermostat than I see people acting. I tell you, one of the things I took away from going to Ecuador is just how little bit of a seat these men are taking in the churches over there. Yeah, they believe men should be the pastors, all right, and they got to have the men up there. But by George, even in Javier and them's church, the women, I saw no man doing anything other than be maybe the one that was up there preaching. I was women doing everything else. Jasmine was up there. They were doing the leading of the singing. They were doing the ushering that was out there. In the church that Jim preached at that night, there was a man that played the keyboard, and Jonathan got up there and did a little Congo thing, drums down there. But the women, and I thought, Lord, if you delete these women over here, this church will shut down. There is no doubt about it, because it was the women that were doing all of the stuff, children's ministry, all of these things. And you see that here. You certainly see that in the American church, that women are holding everything up like that. But I saw it so prevalent, over there, that women were bearing a lot of the things too. And it was just crazy to see it. We always talk just about the American culture. I think it's a culture, there's something happening across the globe where men are not as present as they should. But I want to make sure I get to this point. If you are here today and you feel like you're not good enough, men, well, join the club. I don't think I am either. I don't think I ever will be. There's not a man in the room. I don't think, and if I get done with this statement and you think this doesn't apply to you, raise your hand. Not a man in the room who hasn't made a mistake. I'm looking. A lot of males in here. Anybody not made a mistake? You just did. Anybody in here never lose their temper ever? Certainly you can look back on situations and wish you'd handled it with more grace, more wisdom. Some of you a little bit further down the road in parenting your children and things, and you say, well, I wish I would have done that, wish I would have done this, if I would have had the right handbook and all of that kind of stuff. Absolutely. But, spiritual leadership is not about perfection. It's just about the direction that you're trying to go into. It's about the leadership of where you're trying to go. Every step cannot be perfect. And women, you cannot expect that out of men, because we ain't been perfect since the beginning, and neither have y'all. And if you think that you're only going to be able to submit to a man who's perfect, then you've lost your mind. That would be the same way of us saying, hey, we're only going to love our wives as Christ loves the church if she's perfect. No, there's nobody here perfect. But what are we supposed to be here doing? When you slip up, let me say this. If you make a mistake, men, you know what you ought to do? Huh? Say, I'm sorry. Say, I'm sorry, I was stupid. I shouldn't have done that. How did I put it in your notes? I can't remember. I said, I was wrong. Will you forgive me? You know how many times I've had to do that with my own family? I've sat with my children and I've said, listen, that was my fault. I shouldn't have done that. And that's on me. That's on me. Not on your mama. Me and Brooke had an argument one day, a very heated argument. And I was right. It's true. It's true. I was right. Not about how it happened, but I was right in the ultimate argument. But boy, we was going at it. And I had had enough. And we was going. And I turned and I looked beside me, and there was Eli just wailing on the stairs. And immediately I was like, it's over! Stop! White flag. Done. Done. I'm wrong. I've always been wrong. I'm the most horrible person ever. No. It's done. It's over. Just hush. Just stop. You can't say shut up, because then she really would have got mad. Okay? But I went over there to him and I told him later, I said, this, even though, yes, I still to this day think I was right about the argument. Okay? But I went to him and I told him sitting on those stairs, this was me. I should not have allowed this to happen in this way, because even if I was right, I am the one that allowed this conversation to be in the way that it was, and I participated into all of that, and I said, I'm sorry. And sometimes, Eli, your daddy's going to show you what not to do. And fortunately, right here, this was also a way I should not have treated your mother. And this is a way that you shouldn't treat a woman either. And you think that was very humbling for me to be able to sit there and do that, but I had to. I had to. I am not, my children are watching me all the time. They watch me lead this church. They know that I'm not perfect, and I know that I'm not perfect, and I'm never trying to make them think that I'm perfect. You want the people that know who I really am, you talk to my family. They really know, and so does yours. I'm not pretending in that way. I make mistakes. And you know what? And I put this here. When you do that, that teaches them more about the gospel than 100 perfect days ever could. When you go back and say, I'm sorry, I was wrong, this is a case to where, I'm a father, I'm a man, I need grace too. I've made some mistakes too. That helps and teaches them. Then you've been going at this for a very long time. You haven't been present. You put too much emphasis on work. You haven't been leading your family the way you should spiritually. Then stop. Today's the day you can say like Joshua, hey, I'm going to take a leadership position in my family. I've not been doing that. Maybe you got to go have a conversation with your wife where you say, listen, honey, I am so sorry I have put all this on you. I have been letting you do this far too long. And I have been horrible about that, but I need to take the stand I need to take today. Maybe your kids are grown and out the house. Still, you got to be able to do it. You got to be able to say, listen, I'm going to tell you something, women. You can say all day long you want to be the top dog about everything. Yeah, sure you do. You want to make good money. You want to be CEOs and presidents. And I think girls can be president one day. Ainsley will be president of the whole world. Okay. But listen, I've studied you women a lot. And when the Bible says that you're to submit to this, I don't submit to no man that way. Yeah, you submit to a man that loves you as Christ loved the church. And there's plenty of women. I've seen plenty of women to where the man has been working or whatever, but he just saddles, and I've done this to my own wife in times, where I have saddled her with more than she's supposed to have. And she's longing for somebody to come alongside and help her. Not, you say, oh, well, hey, put more and more on you. You can take it. You're a leader. Do it all. No, there's plenty. And maybe I want to tell you this, men, because maybe your wife, yes, she has just learned to deal with it. Maybe your wife or your whoever has learned that this is just the way things are. But I can promise you, if that's your circumstance where you haven't been bearing your own burden, she's learned to do that, but she is longing every day for some help. Just like you'd be longing for some help. Just like plenty of times people, when you're out there and your other partner in whatever it is that you're doing, maybe it's a business venture or whatever, and they're not pulling their weight, you'll start doing it. But over time, you are sitting there going, my God, I wish they would just rise up to the occasion. Men, today can be the day that we say, listen, I'm sorry, I've not done that, I could be better, and let's do it. Don't just keep on and keep on. The world is fighting for our kids. They're fighting for the mind of our children. And if we don't pour into them, and if we don't disciple them, the world would gladly do it for us. Okay? And all this stuff I've been saying today, I want to tell you this. I love this church. Okay? I have been preaching to the choir this morning. I'll tell you this, because I'll stack United Community Church up against a ton of other churches that are in this city and in this state. We have some awesome men that go to this church, active men. If you look around every ministry of our church, whether that's Sunday school, children's church, youth, look at what our Awana program, if you look at Vacation Bible School, whatever it is, there are men present in every level of things that we're doing in this whole place. It is not a circumstance to where I think probably coming up here and cleaning sometimes, maybe we need a little bit more representation in that. Is that right, Debbie? Debbie sometimes brings her husband Ronnie up here. And I told Ronnie, I said, Ronnie, if you come to church on Sunday, we don't make you do that. Okay? Debbie done scared him away from church. Think every time he comes up here, he's vacuuming, but in every level around this church, and so I don't want to beat you up too much here, okay? We have amazing men and amazing examples of people that are in here that are making ministry happen. Far better than any representation better than the church when I was growing up. I was a ton of just women doing everything. But we have a wonderful partnership of how people do things in this church, and that is wonderful. And that is why, y'all, I believe that God blesses us so much. Because across these boards of things, and it's not about, oh, well, you get to only do this, you stay over there, and you do this. No, we even got men cooking. Oh, glory. Earl back there make anybody a good wife. But I do know this. So I'm saying this about our church, but gentlemen, I know there are plenty of men here, and because I know that this one here, and I'm the pastor, I have opportunity when it comes to this. We have got to do the best job we can do, not at church, but the best job we can do at home in leading our families. Our wives, our children, the whole world is depending on us to be able to do that. And if there's things happening here that's taken away from your ability to do those things at home, you got to make a change. I'm never asking you to forsake your family for doing something here in this church, because I'm not going to do that. But you can't do it by yourselves. Women, you can't do it by yourselves. Men, we can't do it by ourselves. In February, I taught you on the Holy Spirit. After 2 weeks of teaching you what we learned in Sunday school today about the Good Samaritan, remember, I followed that up with the Holy Spirit, our advocate, okay? You can't do it on your own power. You can't do it on your own knowledge. You need the Lord to lead you and guide you and pour into you and give you wisdom and patience and love and empathy and all of these other kinds of things all the time. You got to go back to Him. And if you're not plugged up, men, to the power source, then you are absolutely at sea, okay? But make sure we're doing that at home. Fathers, you should be celebrated. You are immensely important. Y'all are immensely important in this church. And I'll tell you, I was about to tear up when I was talking about Daryl, because Daryl means a lot to me. And my dad's here. He's right there. Okay. Fine man. He got to get his hair cut, but it'll be all right. Let me tell you something about him real quick, because I dump on him sometimes, because, my parents, they needed to read some handbook somewhere. But 2 things that I've never forgotten, and he didn't try to do it this way, But he used to make me read 30 minutes every day. And I hated that, okay? But I had to go in there and I had to read. And that was important. About education was important. And he was a fantastic disciplinarian, really was, okay? He would tell me, hey, when you get home, you can't rile him up. I mean, he's just even kiltered. You know, some of us know this in here. You know, Roy called him one day and fussing about this and that and the other, and Billy was like, okay, buddy. And Roy was like, I said, oh, Roy, I know you wanted to choke him, you know, because he just even. And I'm not that way. I'm all over the place. Yeah, Brooks like, yes, he is. But getting in the boat, I'm all mad about things, and he's just back there, whatever. Saw the drugs over the years or whatever. He's in a constant Woodstock. But anyway, but listen what he did. He would tell me, he said, listen, you know, when you get home, I'm going to give you a whipping. And I'm like, man, no. He had an old leather belt with a, it's not as big anymore, but had a buckle on it, okay? And so it was a real good leather belt, and that's what he used. And I remember one day, I've told this story before, but I remember one day we was in the car, and I wasn't wearing no seatbelt then. You didn't have to, and they didn't make me. But I was up in the front, and he had told me he was going to give me a whipping when I get home. I'm like, oh, I'm going to sweeten him up. I guarantee you he's not. I'm talking to him. He's just talking like normal. You know, ain't no big deal. And I said, he done forgot. Because my mama, I could get her off of it. She would never remember anymore. I said, kids are smarter than you give us credit for. I knew what I was doing. And she would not do anything. But I said, man, he's just talking. Everything was great. We were laughing, joking. We get to the house. He said, go to your room. What? No, what do you mean? Like we've just negotiated this deal over here. We signed it. It's over. No, go in there. Told you I'm going to do it. I'm going to do it. Okay? Gave me a whipping regardless. He didn't have to get mad. He didn't whip me if he had gotten mad like that. He didn't do it out of anger. He did it because that's what was supposed to happen. And I knew that it would hurt him sometimes. I remember tears in his eyes before. That impacted me as a father. I don't want to beat my kids down. I don't want to break my children that way. And I never had parents that did that. So a couple of good things on you, okay? All right. Now, let me just shift for a moment. That in church, what I didn't have from my parents was a lot of spiritual leadership, spiritual direction about things. And I have found that over the years in church, okay? And people like Daryl Wilson and others have been and Tommy and Holly and them were here. Y'all are immensely blessed to have a father like you have right there, and you know that, okay? But people like Daryl and so many of y'all in here today. I mean, all of you, in fact, in here. I always take things from different folks that are here. We have great men that God has put in our life, and I'm telling you, maybe you're in here today, and this is the last thing I want to tell you. Maybe you don't have any children. You notice the cups that I bought today didn't say Father's Day on there. It's men of faith. You don't have to have parented a child to invest in the kids and in this kid and other kids that are here as old as we get in here. But what God needs is men to stand up and to lead out there in front. And you're not going to trample over no ladies doing that. You're not going to have these ladies that are going, you're stepping all over me. What we're going to have is a whole bunch of women going, finally, the other side is pulling their weight again. That's what you'll feel if you do it right. Really. Let's not leave them people hanging, because God has gifted us with that ability to do it. And there's tons of kids, there's tons of youth, there's tons of adults right here in this church that need people to invest in them, and so there's a world out there, okay? I'm going to pray, and then we're going to end in worship. Father, I thank you, Lord, for the reading of your word today. Lord, I just pray that you would help us, Father God, in this church to continue, Lord, like we are right now, and to get better. Father, I am so thankful, Lord, in this church that men have risen up. Lord, it just can't be said about United Community Church, Lord, that the men are inactive, and the men aren't doing things. Lord, I thank you for every single one of the men of faith, Lord, that are out here. Lord, some of the young men, God, that are coming up too, Lord, that are just excited about